Hello and welcome everyone to the episode 2 of Scrum Master Career Series. I'm Anand Pandey and your host for the series. This series is intended to help aspiring and experienced Scrum Masters to prepare for their next career progression. This is a fortnightly series, and in each series, we share some insights straight from the trenches on how you can take your career to the next move. You can register for the upcoming courses or view the recording of the past events from the website targetagility.com. Let me show you how real quick. So you can go to the website and you can scroll through and you'll find our upcoming events. The next event that's going to happen from fortnight from now is a Scrum Master Interview Secrets, where I'll be interviewing Vaibhav Sharma, an enterprise agile coach. What does he do while he's interviewing? What's going in his mind while he's interviewing Scrum Masters? You can view all the past events by clicking on events and what are the upcoming and the past events. For example, this is the event, and if you have not already registered, you would have done from here. And if you're looking for the upcoming event, you can click on register button to join our next one. Last year, we had one more Scrum Master job interview with Saheli Sarkar. The recording of that is available over here. And one more thing, we are your learning partner for all the Agile certifications that can help you accelerate your career. Today, we will be experiencing a live Scrum Master interview where Anuradha, a Scrum Master, will enact as an interviewee and I'll be as an interviewer. In this, I'll be asking her some challenging questions and she'll be answering those. And with every question and answer, we shall be sharing our insights, which will be valuable for you in your preparation for the job interview. So let's get things started. I invite Anuradha for the live interview. Hey, Anuradha, best of luck. And let's get started. All right, so I'm now wearing a hat, not of a host, but of an interviewer. So, Anuradha, what do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, Anand. I'm a seasoned HR professional with years of experience in learning and talent development, event management, and training. I've recently transitioned into the role of a Scrum Master. I've worked with both tech and non technical teams who have been in different maturity levels with both linear and agile processes. Personally, I love listening to podcasts and watching stand up comedy.
Thanks for introducing yourself, Anuradha. Now, when Anuradha was introducing herself, she did not just talk about her professional background, she also emphasized her personal self. Anuradha, you want to add something? Why did you introduce this way?
Yes, because saying that I listen to podcasts shows that I am continuously learning, not just, I'm not a person that who's only wanting to say about my professional career, like Anand said. And I'm also a person who's fascinated about stand-up comedy, which means I take this to my team as well. I make them feel light. So I wanted to share these two things personally of what I do.
My next question to Anuradha is, hey Anuradha, you come from an HR background and here this is a Scrum Master position. So what makes you think that Scrum Master position is good for you?
Well, that's a good question, Anand. There are many similarities between what I was doing and what a Scrum Master does. I used to do daily hurdles with teams before the day starts, and it is similar to what we do with the teams, right? We call them daily Scrum. I facilitate meetings with hiring managers and clients. In fact, we used to even have a fortnightly plan, which in Scrum we call it sprint planning, and I realized that we had been doing Scrum without just naming it so. I've also experienced that the people side of Scrum Master in my tenure as a HR practitioner, be it the interpersonal skills, the communication, the empathy, and coaching, which is very similar to what a Scrum Master does.
Anuradha, rational for answering this?
Yes, of course. So this is a great opportunity for people coming from different backgrounds, be it QA, be it a hospitality or whether you're coming from a teaching background. It is a great place for you to bring in your transferable skills and answer the question as to what a Scrum Master does. So I come in from an HR background. I've been a recruiter myself. So saying those things and comparing that to what a Scrum Master does answers the question better.
Thanks for that. And friends, everyone is, as Anuradha already mentioned, from a QA background, from an operations background, from call centers, but some or the other way, you are actually practicing Scrum, at least the philosophy of Scrum. Use this as an opportunity to highlight. Don't take that, okay, I have not worked in Scrum, so I may not be fit for this position. You might still be practicing some of the essence of Scrum. Do highlight it over here. So my next question is, while Scrum is doing good in the IT space, what's your view on Scrum within HR space?
Yes. Scrum is a domain agnostic framework which can be used across any vertical, and it will help optimizing the current process. We have experienced Scrum seamlessly integrating into HR practices, like, for example, talent acquisition, right? We have done it with process management, employee onboarding, policies and organizational and change management. I personally have experienced it. It's adaptable framework which enhances agility across HR processes. For example, I as as the cycle time that we used to say, we reduced from 15 days to 4 days when we try to implement Scrum, and predominantly using Scrum has helped our recruitment process become more efficient and working with the teams do a better job. And again, this is a great question to answer from your past experience as to what you've done. Again, we all have done Scrum or Kanban at any point in our lives. So transferring those knowledge and answering the question, take your time, right? Just think for a second. I think the interviewer would be okay with that. Just take for a minute and see how you can answer the question better and go ahead and answer it that way. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Anand?
Yeah, sure, Anuradha. Yeah, that's a good point of advice which Anuradha mentioned. Take a couple of seconds. It should not appear that you have already prepared for this. You may expect such impromptu question also. Take a deep breath. You may even ask for permission to have 5 seconds to recollect or connect all my points. And as in the previous question, Scrum in some form or the other may be happening in all the other areas, whether it is QA operations. So tied back together. Maybe you might have not experienced. Go and read case studies from different organizations, how Scrum has been worked in a call center, how it has worked in operations. Bring those case studies in this answer. So it might not be your case study, but take case studies from others and bring it so that you are aware that yes, it is possible. So we'll move to some situational question because in interviews, some situational questions do happen, and I love asking lots of situational questions. So my next situational question is, Anuradha, there's a highly influential stakeholder, and he is always asking for a change mid-sprint. And this product owner is sounding very helpless. What would you do in such a case as a Scrum Master?
Right. So if I get the question right, you're saying that the product owner is helpless and there's a mid sprint and the stakeholders influencing for a mid sprint change. Okay. Okay. Now, I remember a similar situation when I was a Scrum Master for a telecommunications team. The PO and I used to work together, and he needed some collaboration, going ahead and setting up a meeting among the developers and stakeholders. I always encourage self-management, and hence I facilitated only when it was requested. The main focus and the outcome of the meeting was, could the sprint backlog be adapted without hampering the sprint goal? So is the change aligned to the product goal? If we were to include a change, what else can wait, right? So we were thinking of all these possibilities, and the call brought in more clarity among the team leaders. And after the call, I invited the PO for a luncheon, and then we decided to have a discussion. And while having a discussion, I felt I had the need to understand why he was feeling helpless in the first place, right? Because situations like this could happen again. And as a Scrum Master, my responsibility is to coach everyone in the Scrum team. So I had a word with the product owner. And during that process, I got to know that the product owner is an introvert, unlike me, who I'm an extrovert and I like talking with everyone. And this made me understand why the product owner felt helpless. And from then on, for a little while, I helped the product owner, with the process, helps them get some courage, and then go ahead and schedule meeting with the stakeholders, which really, really helped.
Thanks. Now, in this question, this was a situational question, and I was trying to see, is Anuradha experienced to handle such scenarios? Now, there could be two ways she could have answered. One, in a future tense. So, this is what I would have done. Whereas she chose to, this is what I have done. There's nothing wrong or right on either of your approach. If you have already done it, use that as an opportunity. Your interviewer may not say, have you done this? But there'll be a subtle opportunity where you grab and showcase your opportunity that you have done it. In addition to that, you might have seen that Anuradha paraphrased the question, because certain times you may not completely understand the question. It's okay to paraphrase. In fact, I appreciate people who paraphrase the questions. Does not mean all the questions you'll start paraphrasing, but those questions where you have a doubt, you may not have heard, maybe a network issue, maybe a headphone issue, do paraphrase. It's better to ask for a paraphrase rather than answering for a question that you have not understood. Also, one more point. Anuradha could have answered it in a typical process way, that she had a this. But she showed two part of the conversation. One related to process, where she had a conversation with the product owner and the stakeholder. And she also chose an opportunity to show the human side of a product owner. So whenever you're answering such questions, try to take people and process approach together. Anuradha, you want to add?
Yes. So this was a situational question. And as Anand rightly said, for a second, I needed that clarification, because it's always better to answer the question right than to, assume that you've got it right and answer it wrong. And as Anand said, like, trying to build the gap, the emotions, the empathy that you want to bring in as a Scrum Master is very important. And that's what I'm trying to bridge in between myself and the product owner. That talks about the human side of myself. So again, this is a situational question. And I hope I answered it better, Anand. Thanks.
You did. All right. My next question is again a situational one. So there is a product owner who's not able to bring alignment across various stakeholders, and they are across different conflicting time zones. Now, how would you respond to this situation?
Yes. So with stakeholders, we did have a very similar situation. Conflicts are normal within workspace. There's no team that doesn't have conflicts. So is any relationship, right? So we've always, as a human resource specialist, as well as a Scrum Master, I deal with conflicts every day. So this happened with the team that I worked with. The stakeholders were global, and we faced a similar situation, right? So we had people from different time zones. We were not able to align. The product owner was finding it difficult. So I worked with the product owner to see if we can go ahead and shuffle the priorities, and if we can get the stakeholders on a call. When this did not work, the product owner reassessed which stakeholder would be needed for which review. Sometimes not all stakeholders were needed. So the product owner reached out to specific stakeholders and made sure that they are available. And when they were not able to attend, they made sure they sent in some representatives. So reaching out to them personally helped, because if they were not able to attend, they sent us representatives and made sure that the review was still happening. And sometimes we did a mid-sprint review and we did a end sprint review, keeping the stakeholders from various time zones in mind. And sometimes we also went really very flexible and changed the times of reviews, rotating schedules, and this also helped. This solved the conflicting time zone issues between the stakeholders. And what I learned from this, Anand, I was emphasizing with the team and being more flexible with circumvent when these conflicts arises. So we being more flexible is a better way to deal when you have situations like this, and the stakeholders really, really appreciated that.
All right. Thanks for sharing that, Anuradha. You want to summarize?
Yes. So I did use the STAR method here, where I spoke about the situation first. I also said that I had handled this in my own personal experience and what the task was, what the actual problem was, and what are the actions. Like, we were taking turns, we were trying to reschedule, we were trying to align the processes. At times we even did mid and end sprint reviews. And what was the result, what was the outcome, right? So we were able to solve this problem, we were able to get the reviews done, and we were also able to satisfy the stakeholders who really appreciated the effort that we took.
Thanks, Anuradha. Yeah, STAR is a wonderful model. I spoke about the similar model in my previous recording, where any time you get an opportunity to share an experience, always try to bring what's your background. Now, this is an opportunity for you to tell an interviewer that, hey, I come from a telecom background. So let's say I'm applying for a job opportunity. It's to do with fintech. So you may grab any of your opportunity from fintech and say, I was working in, let's say, Bank of America, and this was the challenge. So next step is talk about the challenge where a product owner was having a conflict with a stakeholder. So second step was, what's the challenge? Third, you'll have to mention what's the impact. Because of this challenge with the stakeholder and the product owner, we were not getting the right idea of what work has to be done. The backlog was always churning. That's the impact. The third step. The fourth is you tell what did you do, the action, right? So these are the things that I did. The fifth is what did that result into? So based on my action and conversation, we started seeing more collaboration between a product owner and the stakeholders. And final, the sixth one is what did you learn from this? So every opportunity is a learning opportunity, whether you succeeded in solving that or not, but you must have certainly learned from it. Do highlight it. Now, this is a customized version of a star model. Star had only four. I had a sixth one. I personally prefer this one because here I'm sharing the background and also I'm sharing what did I learn from this experience. Thanks for bringing that, Anuradha. So my next question would be around developers are, and this is very common one, Anuradha. I always face it. I'm looking for your answer from you. My developers always say that, hey, we are working together throughout the day. Even Scrum Guide said that, right? Developers are talking, meeting throughout the day. Then what if I skip my Scrum, daily Scrum? Now, to be honest, I don't have an answer to that. So I'm looking for an answer from you. How would you respond to such developers who say that, why can't I have a daily Scrum in Slack, or I can have a daily Scrum in Microsoft Teams, or don't even have it at all? How would you respond to that?
Right. Yes, this is a very familiar and similar questions being asked. First and foremost, I think I would acknowledge their perspective and remind them on of the purpose of the daily scrum, right? Tell them how it brings out transparency to inspect and adapt. And I try some different adaptations to make it more lively, restructure discussions, kind of adjust the meeting timings to suit the needs of the team members. After all, the daily scrum is for the developers, and make sure that they're all available and the time is all aligned. See if facilitation could be rotated so that there'd be more better participation, and it could instill more confidence in the long run. And I bet developers can squeeze in 15 minutes just during the day. They're more like wizards, but instead of just casting spells, I think they can make the work in a record time.
That's an interesting perspective. Maybe I can borrow some part of that answer when I'm trying to convince my developers.
Right, right. One thing that I would like to add here is you can make the question, or you can sound as funny as you could, because I like stand-up comedy and I'd like to talk, be funny with the team members. I try to bring in some fun part into the answers. But before you do that, gauge and sense the pulse of the interviewer first few minutes, because how they're making you feel comfortable. Are they seeing that you're comfortable? I've seen personally some of the interviewers say, are you okay? Do you need a glass of water? Don't feel stressed. This is just a casual conversation. So just if you feel that the interviewer is in that space, go ahead and crack a joke or two, because this is also a place where the interviewer is seeing if you can actually be as funny as you say that you are with the team members. And I think no hiring manager would say no to a person who's funny and who'd make other people laugh, because end of the day we all want to get the work done, but not in a very pressurable way, but in a most pleasurable way.
Oh, that's a wonderful way to put it. Pressurable and pleasurable. I'll use that word.
Sure.
Anuradha mentioned very good point. See, these interviews are as stressful as for interviewee as it is for the interviewer. So when I'm interviewing a Scrum Master and Agile coach, I also have a stress, I have pressure that am I selecting the right Scrum Master? And so it's a very stressful situation. Don't think that you are the only one who's in a stress. I'm also in a stress when I'm interviewing, right? Because if there's any miss, then finally the line managers, talent managers will be checking that what interview did you do? So we are both at stress. Your putting a fun to it will make both the interviewer and the interviewee a bit relaxed. And that should show up in your body language. So if you're sitting in an interview like this, now that will stress me off because I'll also try to mirror your body language and I'll also try to sit like this. But if you see Anuradha is completely relaxed, and so am I, I'm also relaxed. It should appear as if like we are having a coffee conversation, two friends connecting. Yeah, we may not agree for all the points, but that's okay. All right, Anuradha. Ready for the next question?
Of course.
So we all fail. Let's accept it, right? And we don't glorify our failure as much as we glorify our success. But you must have had some failure where you were very confident that it will work out, but it turned out to be a failure. How do you deal with such failure where you are confident it will work out?
This is a great and a difficult question. Uh, yes, so this happened to me very recently. I was part of a marketing team and I was putting together a social media team. I tried to bring in a person that I used to work with before and soon realized that this person was not the right fit for the team. What I thought was right for me was not right for the team. So I apologized for wasting everyone's time and I took a shameful bow with pride. Like Anand, how you said, it's also stressful for the interviewer because I've taken a lot of time of everyone. So I took a shameful bow and I said, please do apologize. And to answer the next part of your question, I think failure teaches volumes of lessons, right? I'm humble enough to accept my mistake and I'm very mindful enough to learn from it. In teams I used to work with, learning from one's mistake is considered growth, and we have this as part of a working agreement. So when you make mistakes, you learn. And I think people react different ways as to when you make mistakes. Um, and how it is seen is how you would want to make that mistake, right? So if you are okay, if you're in a safe space, then people don't mind making mistakes, like a parent scolding a child and then the child saying, trying to lie because you'll be scolded, is one way that I see it. So for us, we always considered learning from mistakes as a growth mindset instead of shaming or instead of shunning people away.
That's a great perspective, Anuradha. What would you pass a message to the audience for this question?
Of course. So for this particular question, I love it so much coming from the HR background myself, because hiring managers wants to know how we deal with failures. And that's what we do day in and day out. We inspect, we adapt from sprints to sprints, we take this forward. So when we are asked a question about failure, think wisely and answer with confidence. This question might change the way the interviewer sees you. So take the time and be honest and answer the question.
And one more point I would like to add. Many times people put their failure as if disguised in a success, right? Don't make that mistake. So,
Yes.
like Anuradha said, right? Humble acceptance of the failure. That's it. No strings attached. I messed up. I messed it up. Don't mention that me workaholic is my failure. No, don't show those things. It's a failure. It's a failure. What did I learn from that? What matters? And the next question that I'm going to ask is a very common question that comes across nowadays. You're okay?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Where do you see a Scrum Master career with generative AI and ChatGPT coming in?
Ooh, the artificial intelligence question. I like that. I think we need to treat AI more as a companion rather than an adversary. We've always evolved with technology, starting from calculators to computers. I think what we thought was difficult had actually become a blessing later on. And I think that's what AI is doing right now, too. It has a lot of merits to it. But the only drawback, I think, or it lacks is the emotional quotient. It cannot identify nonverbal communications, or it cannot solve any unsaid problems, which in the human world, within the teams that we face on a day-to-day basis, I think we as Scrum Masters bring in that, I would say, the gap to fill in the bridge, right? We bring in that human skills that's needed to help teams that AI can't. Having said that, I personally use AI to give me suggestions on running a different retro or giving a team building activity or a team bonding activity. And I use ChatGPT to help with my social media posts. So I think AI is here to stay with us, Anand. What do you think?
I do completely agree with that. I use ChatGPT more to help me become more effective and efficient rather than seeing that as an adversary that you said.
Great.
Now, friends, an advice over here for everyone who's listening. This is a very common question, but more than a question, we need to realize that most of the logistical administrative stuffs that we Scrum Masters have been doing will surely be getting replaced in another 3-4 years. Are you prepared for that? Anuradha also mentioned that these AIs will not replace the EI that we have. So we are proud of emotional intelligence. And since I have realized for last few years, my bookshelf has got more books on people skills than process skills. So I try to more understand how to work with people, because at the end of the day, it's not the process, it's the people who matter. So start harnessing, start building people skills. Develop your emotional intelligence, interpersonal coaching skills, professional coaching skills. That will take you to the next level. And then you can augment with the artificial intelligence, chat GPT, and generative AIs. All right, Anuradha, here comes my one of the most favorite questions. Here, we are all learners. We survive. We are all knowledge workers. We have to keep on continuously learning and reinventing ourselves. How do you learn?
I don't know if a very it's a situational question, because I'm reading this book currently called Learning to Lead and Leading to Learn. And this is a book that is written by the Toyota leader himself, Isayo Yoshino, on his lifetime of continuous learning, right? Mr. Isayo has been with Toyota for 4 decades. He shares his experience on how Toyota became an organization that values learning and embodies people-centered leadership. So this is an amazing book. And with that book comes a workbook that the author, I don't know, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
right. So this book is written, again, the author, Katie Anderson. She's made sure that you can go ahead and learn and share your learnings through these books. And we as Scrum Masters, we are always seeking, continuous learning. And we are not just servant leaders anymore. We are leaders. And I think this book is a great way to adapt what great leadership is from the person himself that we all most admire, and the organization that we all most admire and talk about when it comes to lean and whatnot, right? So I've started reading this book, and I'm just immersing myself with all the knowledge that's there. And apart from book, Anand, I'm a voracious listener of podcasts, because I get most of my work done listening to podcasts. And I have several podcasts that I listen to, like the ACRT, Agile Coaching Roundtable Conference, which podcast which is done by Ramya and Vivek. And that's the first time where I even got to know about you in the first place. And you had done a session with them, and that's how I came to know about you. I listened to the Delivery Space podcast, Agile Within by Mark Metz, Mastering Agility, Agile Mentorship podcast by Brian Milner. And my recent found is Agile Bites by Philip Ledgerwood. That's a brilliant podcast, which is just for 15 minutes. And he talks a lot about different aspects of Agile, not just Scrum, but everything related to Agile. And I also listen to non-Agile podcasts, like A Bit of Optimism by Simon Sinek, Rethinking by Adam Grant. And I also listen to a particular newfound podcast is the Ikigai Stories, a Japanese podcast where people share out their learnings and lessons. And the more you listen, the more you get better, and the more you learn, and you want to take it to your teams and help them be a better version of themselves.
Hmm.
And yes, please go ahead.
So, Anuradha, you may want to mention why you answered or framed it this way.
Yes, because at the end of the day, we are all, trying to see, because the interviewer is seeing how much we are learning. Because as a Scrum Master, as I said, we are all continuous learners. Learning is going to be part of it, because we're all knowledge workers, and how we are going to help the team and make them become more efficient. So when I say that I'm learning all these things, which also implies that I might be using and implementing those things eventually. And for those who are listening, if I ran through very quickly, I would like to, I can post about this, I can write the podcast that I listen to, and you can all have a look at it later in my post in my LinkedIn. But then listening to podcasts is the new reading books. That's how I frame it, because I do it even when I'm doing my chores, and it's very, very, very helpful.
Thank you for that, Anuradha. And another piece of advice, friends. This is an opportunity to impress your interviewer. Most of the interviewers we come to know within 3-4 days itself, right? When you get an interview call, you know who's your interviewer. Start going to social network, LinkedIn, Facebook, see their pattern of learning. So let's say if Anuradha is interviewing me, and I know about Anuradha 3 days in advance, I'll go to LinkedIn and I'll see what is Anuradha posting about. If Anuradha is posting about podcast, then in my interview, I will talk about podcast. If Anuradha is talking about blogs or Medium, I'll talk about Medium, because this is where I'm trying to mirror, I'm trying to resonate. Anuradha will see, wow, this person also lots talks about podcast. And you never know, the conversation may shift toward podcast commonalities, right?
Right.
One channel that I would recommend is Your Daily Scrum in YouTube. I'm a big fan of that. They are the two PSTs, Ryan Ripley and Todd Miller, and they have got a huge collection of videos, each video of 5 minutes, and they are of a very high quality. You guess any question in the world, and they have the answer for it. So I would recommend you subscribe to that channel. They have got more than 400 videos, and that will be really helpful for you all.
I I love their evidence-based management
And
segment.
there's a book also. It's a very wonderful
Fix
book, Fixing Your
fixing
Scrum.
your Scrum.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
very wonderful book. We will be sharing all these information in our when we post this recording. And I'm seeing some of the questions have also been posted. We will take those questions in a separate. I'll talk about it just after some time. Let this interview part complete. Anuradha, any question for me?
Um, yes. Um, if I'm hired, what are the problems you'd like me to solve in the first 30 days? As in, what are the challenges faced by the team that I can help with?
So Anuradha, the team that you may be prospectively be hired is that uh, they have a huge lead time, and there's a huge number of spillovers of the user stories, and team is doing more of a mechanical scrum. So this is where we are looking for in another 1 month, if you can fix the spillover part, and maybe in another 3-4 months at least improve the cycle time. How does that challenge sound to you?
Oh, I love challenges. And the reason I asked you this question is so that I can prepare, be ready mindfully, right, to be able to help the teams. And I think the lead time is where I'd start too, so that we can improve and see how we can do better in the first quarter.
All right, friends. When I ask this question, generally people say, can you please tell me which kind of business you are in, which kind of industry you are in? That sounds a very stupid question, because you might should have done your homework before, right? About the company, about the locations and everything. Try to be as specific about yourself. The way Anuradha was bang on. What do you expect from me? This is also an opportunity. Like if I would have told Anuradha, we want our CSAT rate to improve from 2 to 9, and our profit margin should increase by 90%. Now, that is something which Anuradha may not be willing to sign up for, because profit is not in her control, budgeting is not in her control. So she may be humble enough to say that no, no, this is not my cup of tea. Or she may be more excited that wow, I'm looking at a real big challenge. So be very clear with your question. This could be an opportunity for you to decide, keeping the salary aside, decide whether you are fit or whether they are fit to hire you, both the ways.
Exactly. I love that. I think it's very important to ask that question because that decides if I would like to join the company before, you would like to hire me as well. So thanks for bringing that up, Anand.
Yeah, have one question ready that may be a kind of a litmus test which will help you decide whether you want to join this company or not, keeping all the other factors aside. That could be like if I would have said, Anuradha, I'm looking for a Scrum Master who can ensure that all the developers are doing the work sitting in the office for 12 hours. Maybe Anuradha may say, no, this is not what I signed up for. It's a Scrum Master. So do have such questions handy. And now this is the question that my mentor told me when I started interviewing. And since then, I always ask this question. You may not have this question in your general interviews, but I do ask it. So if you ever come across in an interview with me, be ready to have this one. So Anuradha, keeping your interviewee hat aside, as a Scrum Master, what feedback would you give me? How did this interview go?
Um, sure. Anand, do I have a safe space to express myself?
Yeah, certainly go ahead.
Um, I don't know, while we were in the beginning of the interview, you were looking down for a little while. I wasn't sure if you're looking away or if my answer was not, compelling enough because that distracted me a little bit. And I wish you would have not done that. But whatever could have been the reason, right? That it took my flow away and I got a little bit distracted. And I wish that you had not done that. Uh, but that's my feedback to you.
I appreciate Anuradha. By the way, friends, that was already planned. I was calling myself from another mobile, so I was not actually distracted. I was actually creating a scenario where Anuradha sees me distracted. I
Right.
gave a safe space for Anuradha. Yes, Anuradha?
No, I just wanted to add to that, Anand. I wanted to say, while this answer might sound really straightforward, but then as an interviewee, if I were to be a hiring manager, I would be seeing, okay, this person is exhibiting one of the Scrum values of herself. She's being extremely courageous to answer this or ask the interviewer not to do this. And this, instead of just talking about the value or implementing it, because as a Scrum Master, you will do this day in and day out to be more courageous, to talk to teams, say upright what you're doing is wrong, or we have to change this. So say having that opportunity to say it on an interview shows more shows what kind of a personality you are, and giving the interviewer a chance to see the other side of you and probably hire you. That's all I wanted to say, Anand. Thanks.
And I actually hired one Scrum Master.
Ah,
Generally, most of the time my mobile phone is always on mute, but on one time I was interviewing a Scrum Master and my phone was not mute, and it rang once. And this person said it to me on the point face that Anand, your phone should have been on mute. I was like, wow, if this person has the courage to say to an interviewer who's a hiring manager right now about this, I'm very sure this person will be challenging and disrupting a lot in the organization.
brilliant. I like that.
All right, friends. So this is how we wrap it up the interview. Now I'm again moving the hat of an interviewer and wearing the hat of a host. And I'm asking you this question, Anuradha. What steps did you take to prepare for this interview?
Right. So first and foremost, since this is an online virtual interview, I made sure the internet connection is fine. Looking from wherever you are, just make sure that you have proper internet connection, right? Read the job description, and I go through the jobs website one last time to see if there are any updates that's come from like whatever, like they won an award overnight and I've not seen that, that would be a great place to congratulate the team member or the hiring manager about what they've achieved. So just make sure that you go through the website the very last minute, even before you join the call. And I made sure that I had my resume available with me. I just put it in a drive. I made it available and had it handy just in case the interviewer doesn't have the resume. I can go ahead and send that link. And I made sure I looked presentable and made sure I was hydrated enough. I had a good night's sleep. And this is what I do with all of my interviews. Just, because that shows, right? Like if you're tired, if there's more anxiety. So calm yourself down, take deep breaths, do some jumping jacks if you want to, just to keep your brain more active. Do all these things as preparation before we get onto an interview.
That was really useful advice, Anuradha, for people who are preparing for these Scrum Master interviews.
Thank you,
And as
Anand.
we come to the closure of it, I really thank you for taking your time to share your experience being an interviewee. I understand it's a stressful one, but you did a great job. And if I was doing a real interview, I would have certainly hired you for this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Anand.
You're welcome. I hope you all who were audience found this helpful. The recording of this video will be available within a week and can be accessed from the website targetagility.com under the events tab. We will be posting this in the LinkedIn channel as well, from you can find it out. And with that, we wish you a very best of luck for your career progression and looking forward to having you in the next event. And do consider Target Agility as your learning partner for all your Agile certifications that can accelerate your career. Goodbye, friends.